On March 15, 2014, 2 Dutch students boarded a plane from Amsterdam to Costa Rica. Like any recent graduate, 21-year-old Kris Kremers and 22-year-old Lisanne Froon were excited students ready to see the world after graduation. The two had spent a considerable amount of time saving money and wanted to enjoy this vacation as part of their gap year. From Costa Rica, they continued across the southern border into the country of Panama, where they made a quick stop at Bocas del Toro near the coast before leaving for their final destination, Boquete, which was further inland. If the two weren't enjoying the food, drinks, and sightseeing, they would be taking Spanish lessons and volunteering in a local children's school. Lisanne and Kris had both recently graduated from different universities in the Netherlands, where they both lived. They both kept diaries and were described as normal, intelligent university women looking for a nice vacation to relax. Nevertheless, on March 29th, after arriving in Boquete, they settled in with the host family they'd made arrangements to live with for the duration of their stay. It was also around this time that the two decided to explore Boquete. We can see in pictures they took that they seemed to be having fun, visiting flower markets and going out to eat. But one thing they hadn't done yet was see the trails and the hiking areas around Boquete. So a few days later, on April 1st, the two were dropped off at the start of the Pianista trail by taxi. This 8-kilometer trail is well known, and there's really only one path to follow towards its summit, although it's said to be somewhat dangerous because of its steepness and its sometimes muddy terrain. Nevertheless, at around 11 a.m., the two began their hike. Both only decided to wear a tank top and shorts and brought a light backpack with some water, their camera, and most likely some snacks, indicating that they were expecting a short, leisurely hike. Pictures they took with their camera show that their ascent up to the summit was going as planned, although some say that these pictures have been photoshopped by a third party, or the two look anxious, but we'll get into that later. For now, they're seen making their way through the forested section of the trail before finally making it to the summit, where they take a string of selfies with the view. Now, the summit of the trail, called El Mirador, is usually the spot where hikers turn around and head back towards Boquete, as there's no other trail that loops hikers back around. However, for some reason, pictures show that the two had kept walking away from Boquete past what is called the Continental Divide and further into the forest. Various sources claim that Lisanne and Kris had researched the trail beforehand, so it's unclear why they kept walking. Maybe they thought that there was more nature to be seen ahead, or maybe they just weren't tired yet. Regardless of how the decision was made, the two kept walking into what is called the Caribbean side of Panama. It's been said that this side of the trail is a common route for drug trafficking, but others claim that it's just a route where locals and their cattle typically pass by. Image 505 shows Kris walking through a ravine just past the summit, the location being confirmed by others who have walked the trail. A few seconds later, image 506 is taken, showing the walls of the ravine. Around 30 minutes after that, the last two pictures are taken, depicting Kris crossing a stream. Image 508 shows her looking back at the camera and would be the last picture confirmed to have been taken by the women. But this is the point in the story where things take a dark turn. In the next 2.5 hours of the day, something happened to the girls. Something bad enough that they would call 112, the Dutch version of 911, at 4:39 p.m. from Kris's iPhone, but no connection was made because of poor reception. 12 minutes later, another attempt was made to call 112, this time with Lisanne's Samsung, but again, it didn't go through. Around an hour later, both phones were powered off, and in the following days, 911 and 112 would be called 7 times. Meanwhile in Boquete, the mother of the host family, Miriam Guerra, notices that they haven't returned from their hike. However, she didn't think too much of it, as students usually stay out late and enjoy Boquete's nightlife. The next morning, on April 2nd, a tour guide that the girls had previously booked an 8 a.m. appointment with got concerned after they didn't show up.
Un evento que teníamos pendiente de hacer el día miércoles a las 8 de la mañana, les fui a buscar, no las encontré y ya al darnos cuenta que no habían dormido en su casa donde habitualmente estaban con la familia, al día siguiente ya.
This tour guide then went to visit the house where they were staying, and upon finding that they weren't there either, he notified the girls' parents in Holland. At which point, the parents went to the Dutch police, and a few hours later, the tour guide did the same in Boquete to report the missing girls. By this point, small private search teams had already started looking for Kris and Lisanne, including the tour guide who'd reported them missing. He'd also informed Sinaproc, a national civil protection system, about the girls' disappearance. Even on April 2nd, phone records show that the girls' phones were still active and being used. 911 was called multiple times, Lisanne's Samsung was used to open the weather app, and curiously, Kris's iPhone 4 was used to search this up on WhatsApp. It seems as if she was trying to search up the mother of the host family, Miriam, before the phone is switched off without any further action. By the end of the day, Lisanne's Samsung had reached 1% and it too was powered off. By the next day, Cineproc had started their searches on the Pianista Trail and trails surrounding it. Various sources indicate that a helicopter and a small plane were being used to help in the search, but since the Caribbean side of the trail was covered in trees, it didn't help much. Searches continued throughout the next few days. More volunteers were added to search teams and more helicopters were dispatched, but with no significant progress. However, this is when the first signs of foul play are noticed. Phone records would later show that on April 5th, Kris's iPhone 4 was powered on, but the wrong or no passcode was put into the phone. Over the next few days, this would happen over 77 times. On April 8th, 7 days after the girls went missing, another batch of photos would be taken, now dubbed the nighttime photos. The first, image 511, believed to have been taken around 1:30 a.m., shows the forest trees looking up, with droplets of some kind scattering the picture. Some believe this is rain, while others think it's water from a nearby waterfall. Now it's important to mention that all of the nighttime photos haven't been released to the public yet, so many chunks of pictures are missing. The next photo, image 541, seems to show one of the girls, maybe their chin and cheekbone, looking up, or as some have pointed out, it could have been a photo of Lisanne smiling, as it matches well with the previous picture of Lisanne. However, while it matches up well with the edges of her face, we can see that it doesn't quite match up completely. From then on, the nighttime pictures seem to just photograph the forested area, the trees, terrain, and the sky. But there are some photos worth mentioning. Image 550 shows a branch with what seems to be an orange plastic bag tied to it. Some have theorized that this was a marker of some sort to see if the girls were going in circles. Another image shows what seems to be various items on a rock, a mirror, a strap of some sort, and paper, and some have said that this is how the girls had been trying to create an SOS sign. Some have even cleverly matched parts of the paper in this picture to other pictures taken days earlier. For example, this piece of paper on the rock matches a map that the girls had been reading days before the hike. And finally, image 580 shows what seems to be the back of Kris's head, although, for hair that's been lost in the forest for 7 days, it looks eerily clean. No head injury, blood, or even water seems to have touched the hair, even though in the earlier nighttime pictures it seems to have been raining. Meanwhile, private search teams and Cineproc had little luck in finding any trace of the girls, and as more and more search teams had come up empty-handed, people started losing hope that the girls were in the forest at all. However, around 2 months after the girls' disappearance, on June 11th, it was reported in various news articles that a local woman had stumbled upon the girls' backpack down the Culebra River. It was found to be mostly dry, with authorities' first real clues as to what happened to the girls. In the backpack, the Canon digital camera, both the girls' phones, 2 bras, and $88 in cash was found, among other things. Although, what was odd was that despite having been washed down the river for multiple kilometers, the bag and its contents were found mostly undamaged. Furthermore, 13 DNA samples were reported to have been taken from the backpack, and of those samples, actual DNA was only found on 3 of them. It was described as being from at least 2 females, 2 males, and multiple unknowns. However, none of the DNA samples matched that of Lisanne, Kris, or anyone in criminal DNA databases. Some have theorized that the girls' DNA could have been washed off in the river, meaning there's also a possibility that a third party's DNA could have also been washed off. Nevertheless, searchers focused on the area where the backpack was found, and in a few days, they began to find human remains. Shoes with bones inside of them were found, along with part of a pelvic bone and a jeans short. An autopsy was then performed on the bones, and confirmed to be the foot of Lisanne, and the pelvic and jean shorts was of Kris. However, this discovery led to even more unanswered questions. Autopsy of the bones inside the shoe showed that the foot was broken cleanly. No signs of cutting, hacking, gunshots, or teeth were found. From this, the cause of death couldn't be determined. Autopsy of Kris's pelvic bone was even more strange, as only a piece of it was found. Most pelvic fractures happen during high-speed car collisions or falls from a great height, which could imply that Kris endured a powerful force. Forensic experts later found that the bone had been bleached in some way, and traces of phosphorus were discovered. Natural bleaching from the sun or the soil is very unlikely, as the level of bleaching in such a short time can't be explained from natural elements. In the following months, more fragmented remains would be found, later confirmed to be Lisanne's tibia and femur with pieces of tissue still attached, and Kris's rib bone, also bleached. Further searches and discoveries didn't uncover much about what happened to the girls, and only further confirmed that they were indeed dead. So, investigators turned to the evidence they already had, focusing on the pictures first. From the image file names, it can be seen that image 508 is the last daytime picture, and image 511 is the first nighttime picture. Now we know that image 510 exists, but just hasn't been released to the public. However, image 509 can't be found. When you take a picture with the Canon camera that the girls were using, let's say image 40, and delete that picture, the next picture you take will fill in that gap. So if image 509 can't be found on the camera, it implies that someone deleted the picture after the nighttime pictures were taken and used a computer to do it. So, where did image 509 go? All the natural causes can mostly be dismissed. The camera couldn't accidentally miss a number, and its memory card still had space, so the prevailing theory is that someone had deliberately deleted an image 509 for whatever reason. Maybe it contained incriminating evidence of a third party or their real location. For now, we'll never know. Then was the issue of the nighttime photos. Some believe that they were only taken to produce a flash and act like a flashlight for the lost girls. However, others have pointed out that in a lot of the pictures, the same plant is photographed, meaning that the girls were staying in one spot while taking pictures. In this case, the flash would not be needed. Others have pointed out that maybe the flash was used to try and signal searchers or helicopters, although it's unlikely that Cineproc would send people or helicopters into the forest at night. Even if they did, the flash usually doesn't get too far, and it's blocked by rocks and plants. Yelling, if they could, would have been a better way at signaling searchers. However, this way of thinking might be a little retrospective, as the girls probably did whatever they thought would work, regardless of whether it was a good idea. Maybe the girls were trying to show something around them, maybe their location, but if that was the case, why not take pictures of something more identifying, rather than mostly just the sky? And why not take a quick video with their cameras or their phones? In fact, some have questioned, if the girls were just lost, why didn't they record a video explaining what happened, or write a note on their phones? Since some pictures had been taken in the same spot, a small reconstruction can be made of the landscape. The location of the nighttime pictures to this day haven't fully been confirmed. Theories as to what happened to the girls generally fall under two categories, the lost theory or the foul play theory. The lost theory usually explains that the girls found themselves deep in the forest and didn't know a way out. Some say that one of the two girls might have gotten injured, at which point they called 911, or the other girl had left to get help before meeting a similar fate. The girls did come from the Netherlands and most likely didn't have a lot of good wilderness experience, so it is possible that they had just walked too far in the forest as the sun would have been setting, and panic would have started to sink in. At that point, they might have gotten disoriented and started making irrational decisions. Authorities involved in the search usually subscribe to this theory. The prominent theory of Dutch investigators is that the girls had continued walking further into the forest and had tried to cross one of the cable bridges, where they had accidentally fell into the river and got swept away. However, this doesn't explain how the skeletons of the two girls got broken up the way they did. Remember that only the foot and leg bones of Lisanne were found, and the pelvic and rib bones of Kris. Panamanian authorities initially called the disappearance a homicide, but later came to a similar conclusion, saying that the girls likely drowned in a river or were attacked by wild animals. Although, this doesn't explain all the incorrect pin attempts on the girls' phones, how Kris's bones ended up bleached, why searchers still haven't found all their remains, and contradicts the discovery of no teeth marks on Lisanne's bones. Kris's parents who have walked the trail had also said that there's really only one route to take, and that there's no confusing junctions or other trails.
Is één pad, je kan niet van het pad af. Je kan niet, er zijn geen splitsingen, er zijn geen andere wegen. Je kan alleen maar als je het pad door.
The foul play theory is much more interesting. It explains that the girls had run into an unknown person or group of people on or before the trail, where they were then either kidnapped or killed. This would mean that Kris and Lisanne did not meet their end through natural means. Cineproc's leader of the search teams stated that they combed through every zone of the forest where the girls may have ended up. Over 25 trails were checked, and yet nothing except scattered remains were found. It's also unlikely that the girls didn't run into anyone that could have helped them on the trail if they were lost. as the route they took is frequently used by hunters, farmers, and locals. This theory would also explain why no large remains were found, the missing or deleted photos on the camera, Kris's bleached bones, and all the incorrect pin attempts on the girls' phones. Something that supports the foul play theory is the sudden and suspicious deaths of various people involved in the case. A taxi driver who came forward as the one who had picked up and brought Kris and Lisanne to the start of the Pianista Trail was found drowned a year later under unexplained circumstances. According only to these eyewitness statements, the story goes that after dropping Kris and Lisanne at the Pianista Trail, a local gang had stopped the taxi driver and asked him where he dropped the girls off. After telling them, the gang had followed the girls and convinced them to come back to their house to party, but when they got there, them and the girls had gotten into an altercation and the girls were killed. The gang then tried to cover it up by taking the nighttime photos themselves and faking the phone activity, as well as trying to bleach the bones to speed up decomposition. People who had come forward with the story had also ended up dead, making it one of the most popular foul play theories of the case. However, for this theory, all we can go on is statements from various people with no concrete evidence that any of this actually happened. If the girls did get kidnapped, why would the perpetrator let them call 911 that many times, or let them take the nighttime photos? Some have said that after killing the girls, the perpetrator had likely wanted to make it look like they had just gotten lost, so they took the nighttime pictures and scattered the remains in the backpack themselves, so the authorities would stop searching. A version of this theory states that the daytime pictures could even be photoshopped to conceal any third-party or incriminating evidence. But then again, Lisanne's foot was found to have been broken cleanly with no signs of cutting, so how could this have happened? The complex and contradicting nature of this case is the reason it has captured public attention for so long. A disappearance, documented by the victims themselves using a set of mysterious and cryptic photos, is a case that has stumped detectives and internet sleuths alike.